Thank you to my producer Brad this morning. This is Sandra Leslie White flying in here live, WJMM Studios, here just outside of Lexington, Kentucky. And those of you listening in today at 99.1 FM or on WJMM.com, listen to Jen Johnson live come to me as she was performing in the Loft Sessions, which are gorgeous. They're at Bethel in Redding, California. So what about this idea of coming to me? Who is she talking about? And what is the invitation? You know, I don't know how you feel about getting an invitation. I think it's just kind of rare these days. You know, we sent out a whole lot of invitations to my daughter's wedding recently. It's always fun to get an invitation. But to me, it's really more interesting and inviting if I'm asked over to someone's house for dinner. To me, a dinner invitation in someone's home is the most lovely invitation I could ever receive, because I know that if you're invited to my house, we're going to have good conversation, good food, good company. So there's something about an invitation, an idea of being asked to come and to come to my house or come to God's house. How do you feel about that? And I'm not talking about just going to church. I'm not saying, invite somebody to come to God's house. I'm not talking about that. But what if God presented an invitation to you? Would you go? Would you go? Well, today's message is titled The Invitation, and we're looking at Hosea 6:3 this morning, as well as Isaiah 1:18-20. We may reflect also on the New Testament context of that as Jesus offered an invitation in Matthew 11. So let's jump into the word this morning and listen to the invitation. Okay, we're in Hosea 6:1-3, the New American Standard Version this morning. If you're just tuning in, this is Sandra Leslie White with the invitation. Come, let us return to the Lord, for he has torn us, but he will heal us. He has wounded us, but he will bandage us. He will revive us after 2 days. He will raise us up on the third day, that we may live before him. So let us know. Let us press on to know the Lord. His going forth is as certain as the dawn, and he will come to us like the rain, like the spring rain, watering the earth. All right, so this is a wonderful invitation, is it not? This is the voice of the people responding to all of the discipline of the Lord in the previous 5 chapters. Of the northern kingdom, the southern kingdom combined. This is also, indicated in the prophet Isaiah, which we're going to get to in a minute. The northern kingdom is primarily who Hosea was concerned with in the latter part of the 8th century BC. He was prophesying to them about all their destruction and their destructive ways, leaving Yahweh, leaving his word, leaving his teachings, just leaving his presence. And now they are responding to the discipline of the Lord in chapter 5. And talking to one another by saying, come, let us return to the Lord. And later in that passage, we look at verse 3, where they make it clear, not only once they come, but that he will come like the rain. He will come to us like the rain, like the spring rain, watering the earth. Okay, so we've got an invitation here from the people to come. Let us return to the Lord. So there's an invitation with the promise. Ooh, I love that. Don't you like to go somewhere where the promise is fulfilled? In other words, if you're invited over to my house, I promise that you'll have a good meal. And that your expectation of a warm, inviting evening with good food, good drink, good conversation will happen. I mean, that's my promise to you. So here's the invitation with the promise. So he will come to us like the rain, like the spring rain watering the earth. So this is important to the Hebrew people at the time of this prophecy. As I said earlier, the latter part of the 8th century BC is when this prophecy was penned. It's before the destruction of God's people, the Assyrian overtake, in the 700s BC. So this is a prophecy, this is a warning, this is a place where Yahweh is saying to his people, look, you're looking to other gods primarily for physical sustenance. In other words, really for provision. You know, we talk about the 3 P's here a lot. His protection, his provision, and his prophetic mantle, his priesthood, his pastoring over them, those 3 P's. So this one is about provision, and of course this is an agrarian society. They depended on the rain. They depended on their crops flourishing so that their herds could flourish, so that then their families could flourish. And they were going to these temples where the prostitutes, both male and female, were offering fertility in the fields and in the family. So there must have been a period here of drought. Have you been in one? I mean, a period of drought where just no provision was happening. No rain was coming. Nothing of good sustenance to provide for you was coming. Maybe your bank account has dried up. Maybe it's a matter of trying to get those sales in before the end of the year. What about ministries trying to raise money by the end of the year? What about the drought in your personal life? What about the drought that might be in your spiritual life? What about those droughts? Well, this is a drought, and this is where he says and has the invitation, Hosea, from the people to come collectively, let us return, because he will come to us like the rain, like the spring rain watering the earth. What's interesting to me is they aren't really talking at this point anyway in these first 3 verses about the fact that, oh my God, he's going to bring the rain. You know, bring the rain. So that, okay, so these gods aren't working, so just bring the rain. In other words, just bring the money. In other words, just deliver the goods. Okay? You know, that's kind of, you know, is that our prayer life? Well, anyway, they're not doing that. They're like, come, let us return to the Lord, because he'll come to us. Oh, he will come to us. Let us return. He will come to us. So when the Lord comes to us, it seems that there's been for them a period of withdrawal. Clearly, the withdrawal of his protection, and they're getting really destroyed, his provision, their crops are drying up, and his prophetic mantle over them. Where are the prophecies over his people that there was going to be an everlasting kingdom, right? An everlasting kingdom. Under the Davidic kingdom, you know, the Hebrew people are expecting, well, David is always going to be on the throne. It's going to always be the presence of Yahweh. It's everlasting. That's his promise. Well, where is he? So, have you been there? Have you been there? Well, it's time for us to consider this idea of the invitation. And the invitation, you know, we think about that one in Christ. We think about that one as the invitation to give your life to Christ. And certainly that's an invitation, and that's a beautiful one, important one. If you haven't made that decision, that's an important one. But why? Why and how does Jesus create the invitation? Okay, so let's look at his invitation. We see the Hebrew people centuries earlier of saying, look, let's come and return to the Lord because he'll come to us. Well, Jesus, we touched on this yesterday. Here's his invitation. Here is his invitation to you and to me, this crazy, chaotic Christmas season. Oh my gosh. Why? Why do I do this to myself every year? This is a message for me. If it's not for anyone else out there, it is certainly for me. So let's listen to Jesus' invitation to come to me. All right. So let's look at Matthew. This is chapter 11. I'm going to actually go all the way back to 25 and go to 30 this morning in the New American Standard Version. This is Matthew 11, 25 to 30. Listen to the words of Jesus. At that time, Jesus answered and said, I praise thee, O Father, Lord of heaven and earth, that thou didst hide these things from the wise and intelligent, and didst reveal them to babes. Yes, Father, for thus it was well-pleasing in thy sight. All things have been handed over to me by my Father, and no one knows the Son except the Father. Not does anyone know the Father except the Son, and anyone to whom the Son wills to reveal him. Come to me, all who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you shall find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy, and my load is light. There's the invitation. And the backup to that invitation is in verse 28. Come to me. There's the invitation. All who are weary and heavy laden, could that be you today, under the burdens of Christmas? You know, Christmas, Jesus came to lift the burden, not to inflict the burden. I'll say it again. Come to me, all who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Are you finding rest in the midst of the madness right now? He goes on with the invitation to take my yoke upon you. In other words, get yours off and learn from me. Don't learn from anybody else. Just take this season, this time, to learn from me. For I'm gentle and humble in heart. You shall find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy. My load is light. So when we talk about come to me, and I opened with Jen Johnson live at the Loft Sessions out there in Redding, California, where she sings this beautiful song, this beautiful invitation to come to me. So this invitation is not to come to dinner at my house, or come to church, or come to Christ, but it is a message of coming to Jesus. And I'm not differentiating Jesus from Christ. I'm not talking about giving your life to Christ. I'm assuming most of you listening in have done that. But it is an invitation that's deeper and further beyond the prayer of salvation. It is to come to him, to take the invitation to come to him. If you're weary and heavy laden, if the drought has taken hold in your life, physically, spiritually, emotionally, if you're drained, consider the invitation today. God bless you.